Well, I just don't think it's as simple as the good colors. Techies, gadget geeks, we get a lot of stuff wrong when it comes to cameras. If it's image processing, resolution, moving the goalposts around on quality and low light performance. The biggie for me, though, is familiarity. A reviewer will often gravitate towards one phone in between reviews. Spending 2 weeks on a review and some comparisons, then go back to a more familiar device. We miss the nuance of what each camera brings to the table, and it's easy to lean a conversation into a more popular device winning a showdown. To that end, the main reason why I really like Pixel cameras, well, they have very little to do with image processing or HDR or night modes. I think we have a good handle on that. I don't believe Pixels are objectively the bestest for phone cameras, and I think it's pretty easy to show how other phones can compete with a Pixel when the operator is more familiar with that competition. I don't take bad photos of my family, regardless of what phone I'm using. So it's my unlearned assertion that the reason why Pixels are such a joy to shoot on is camera controls, or more specifically, the lack of camera controls. So I don't believe any software is intuitive. I believe everything should be judged by varying degrees of familiarity. And picking up a Pixel, there is so much less you need to familiarize yourself with. My biggest gripe with modern phone cameras is how much value-added software is tacked on top of our viewfinder. I think smartphone camera apps kind of peaked around the Galaxy S7 and LG V20 era of phones. There were complicated settings buried in those apps, but the main viewfinder for composing your shot was a little less cluttered. When I need to focus on my composition, I want as little distracting me as possible. And while I'm discussing this like some heavy-handed camera nerd, this philosophy is most critical when it comes to the daily moments and candid shots. The average consumer photo moments where a camera most needs to it just works. And I really want that idea to sink in for the most casual users. This is a monumental design hurdle. We still want feature complete, but how do we get there and minimize distractions? In terms of app layout, there is one critical difference in how Pixels organize, and it's to move the side menu options farther to the edge of the screen. We're talking about phone screen, so it's not really much of an ergonomic challenge to reach over the list of modes to hit a shutter button. That's not a difficult stretch. So when you go to line up your shot, there is no other information immediately bordering your view. Your viewfinder is all composition. This seriously benefits video, a serious perk for video. The list of modes is not on your viewfinder and no longer needs to be guarded against accidental taps or swipes. On so many phones now, you lose a chunk of your viewfinder and autofocus because of this stupid list of modes. This panel exists, which is dead space, and you can't tap to focus. On some phones, this can be as much as 20% of your potential field of view. Now, a Pixel can't completely free up that space, but I can still focus on the right side of my frame around the shutter button. This is kind of huge when it comes to the operation of a camera in that moment you're trying to use it. A smaller ergonomic perk is leaving the left side almost completely free. There's less to distract or read through. The idea of a Pixel camera is already heavily focused on auto HDR processing. When you need something, you hit the little caret and an animation pops up leading the shooter's eye to a semi-transparent window of quick toggles. You can still keep your framing in mind while swapping those settings, and then it scoots out of the way when you're done. I really like this panel idea on other cameras too, but often these panels are opaque. They block your viewfinder, and you're constantly looking for small icons or menus on the sides of your viewfinder. Like on my OnePlus 9. I like my OnePlus 9, but sometimes you have a panel of options, sometimes you don't, which means you're thinking about the operation of the camera in that moment more then you're trying to compose your shot. It's also why I haven't loved Apple's changes recently, adding more functionality to the iOS camera app, but doing so in a way that makes the user look around more on the camera app for various settings and controls, and still occasionally dumps you completely out and into your phone's master list of settings. Like seriously, why do I have a toggle on one side which changes settings on the other side of the screen, and I have my HDR option duplicated in both places? That is such a waste. That is not good design. Back to the Pixel. It's all the little things. HDR preview in the viewfinder, Google does that really well. So there's less guessing what your final shot will look like. I don't think it's hard to develop an idea or predict what a camera will do in different lighting conditions. The aforementioned OnePlus 9. I have a great handle on how a OnePlus is going to change up a shot after processing it. I've shot enough on those OnePluses, I'm rarely wrong about what the final image is gonna look like. But building that expectation, your ability to predict the final image, you get a feel for shooting on a Pixel way faster because of how it stages that preview. Or the fantastic autofocus. This is some of the best subject identification and tracking I've ever seen on a phone. And this is really happy for focus and recompose. This is a thing that DSLR shooters had to do a lot. You'd focus and then try to angle the camera and keep everything on the same plane of field so the depth of field didn't mess up your subject. And I really don't like it on other phones when you tap on your subject and then you only get like 2 or 3 seconds before the autofocus releases and goes back to a full auto. Maybe you're just trying to adjust something quickly on that shot. You don't have a lot of time. So on a Pixel, when you tap and focus, that focus sticks and then it just doesn't let go. It gives you the ability to fine tune or tweak that image before you hit your shutter. Or keeping your shot level. The guide on a phone camera can help you keep your horizon flat. But this is a funny bit of helping and distracting. Having your eyes look through your viewfinder at the scene you're trying to capture versus looking at a small setting and focusing on your phone screen. This is kind of like the difference between looking through your car's windshield at the traffic coming up versus focusing your eyes inside your car for turn-by-turn navigation. I mean, often really what people do is look past that guide and it's just more of a shape your peripheral unfocused vision might interact with, but not on a Pixel. On a Pixel, there's a haptic pulse when your shot moves from being crooked to lining up with the gyro on the phone. The phone is guiding your composition, but using another mechanic to deliver that information to your fingertips without additionally taxing your optical attention. That kind of information delivery is sublime. And that's the note, we should probably start wrapping this all up. I want folks to get more out of their phones and especially more out of their cameras. I'm definitely the guy, personally, who's going to dig on shooting more camera style on a V60 or an Xperia. I love those manual modes, but it's because of my experiences shooting with those manual options. I think it's even easier to detail all the little touches and ergonomic considerations that often get disregarded in techie reviews, where we're so concerned about reading off the numbers and whipping our specs out to compare. We completely lose sight of the feel of a camera, which I would argue matters a lot more than the individual hardware nuts and bolts. It's something professional photographers weight heavily in their assessments of standalone cameras. It's something we should be doing a better job of in our tech videos. And thank you for coming to my Tech Talk. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel, supporting your favorite content creators, super critical. Full list of all my affiliates and partnerships on somegadgetguy.com, or you could consider joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy. This list is basically a collection of the coolest tech pals on the planet. True story. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at somegadgetguy on the Twitters and the Twitch. Not so much on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, but I will catch you all on the next video.